Okay, so we have a little change in our schedule tonight. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to save all of our improv till after Howard and Margaret, and then we'll have more time for the improv stuff. So, Howard and Margaret Robertson, I want to tell you guys a little about them. Thank you all for coming, those of you who are leaving. Are you guys working on your sustainability stuff tonight? Yeah. Okay, Howard and Margaret are both involved in the sustainability movement. And Margaret, I know, teaches sustainability at LCC, right? So this is going to be some very informative and interesting stuff that they're going to be doing. So you guys should really be digging on this because it is important to all of our futures on this planet. All right, so I'm going to read the bios they sent us. Howard and Margaret Robertson. Howard Robertson is a poet and fiction writer who lives in Eugene, Oregon. He has published 9 books of poetry, a short novel, and a book of stories. He has won Atlanta Review's International Merit Award, the Sinclair Poetry Prize, the Robinson Jeffers Prize, and numerous other awards. His work has appeared in many journals and has been anthologized often, including in Literal Latte, the anthology Where We Live Now, the Jack Straw Writers Anthology, the Clear Cut Future, and the Ashata Anthology, Poetry of the American West. Did I say that right? Yeah, I hope. Okay. Margaret Robertson, ASLA, is the author of Sustainability Principles and Practice, published by Routledge Earthscan in 2014, and has a forthcoming book, Communicating Sustainability, also from Routledge Earthscan. She holds a Master of Landscape Architecture degree, is a Sustainability Fellow in the Higher Education Association's Sustainability Consortium, and teaches sustainability at Lane Community College, where she is also a coordinator of the Sustainability Degree Program. So please welcome Margaret and Howard Robertson. All right, question real quick. Would you guys each like your own mic? You're going to kind of go together? Or
We'll go one at a time, so just one mic.
Share one? Okay. All right, so I'm going to do this one right here. You can put it wherever you like.
And I just wanted to note what a great space this is. Isn't it interesting that you can take flat, dry grass, hang up a few pieces of cloth, and all of a sudden you, Stephen, have created this magical space out of almost nothing. So that's just wonderful.
A little realm.
It's a little realm and rather magical.
The poetry realm.
Yes, well, and along those lines, Stephen has very kindly let me sneak in. I'm not actually a poet.
But she is the sustainability authority right here, right now.
So thank you for letting me weasel in.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to read a few words from this book, which is a textbook. This is actually a textbook that sustainability courses use. So I'll just set this in. The world as we know it is sitting at a threshold, a really big one. Humans have gone through several major transitions in their history: the discovery of fire, the development of language, the development of agriculture, the Industrial Revolution. We are living on the threshold of another major turning. Science divides Earth's history into periods based on large-scale changes. So the Pleistocene was the time of ice ages, a time when creatures like mastodons and camels roamed the land that is now Oregon, right here. Then came the Holocene, the time which spanned all of written human history until now. We live at the beginning of a new geological epoch, the Anthropocene, a period in which human activity has become such a powerful force that it has major planet-scale impact on climate and on every living system. Change has always been a universal feature of life, of course, but at this moment in history, life on Earth is changing at a rate faster than it has in 65 million years. 5 times in the last half billion years, something big happened that sent massive numbers of creatures into oblivion. The 5th mass extinction happened 65 million years ago when something, probably an asteroid, wiped out most animals, including the dinosaurs. Today, a 6th mass extinction is underway, with species disappearing at 1,000 times the normal rate. This time, the cataclysmic cause is us. Climate is changing too, and even if we stop burning fossil fuels tomorrow, we are committed to a warmer climate because of carbon dioxide already in the atmosphere. We now inhabit a different planet than the one on which human civilization developed and on which it has lived throughout its history. Still, there are grounds for hope. If we are very committed, and perhaps very lucky, the climate will eventually stabilize. Carbon dioxide concentrations, which are now above 400 parts per million and rising, will eventually begin to fall below the safer level of 350. At that point, assuming that geochemical cycles, remaining ecosystems, and other planetary components have stabilized, the parts of the Earth system which survive will be able, slowly, to soak up the excess carbon dioxide and restore balance. However, much will have changed. Earth, when it settles into a new state of equilibrium, will not be the same as it was before. Between now and then lies the transition. That is where we live now. And it will take centuries at least. Science tells us that the climate impacts of fossil fuels will last hundreds and probably thousands of years. The work we do now is for a future we will never see. But that's what's cool about it. So I've written a book about sustainability that I waved at you a minute ago. And what does that word mean? It means enduring into the long-term future. Sustainability is about living systems that can operate on their own and persist over long periods of time. Why have these living systems persisted for so long? Earth is a mosaic of many different environments at many different scales, yet no matter which piece you study, at whatever scale, you'll see common patterns. There isn't any waste. Energy flows through and materials go round and round in closed loops, with the byproducts from one creature or system becoming inputs or food for another. And things are connected. At every scale are rich networks of connections and interconnections and interdependence, with elements depending on each other and affecting each other. We are surrounded by systems that are not only more complex than we know, they are more complex than we can know. But it is that complexity and diversity that makes systems resilient. Resilience is the key to sustainability. Resilience is the capacity of a system to absorb disturbance and still retain its basic function and structure, like a forest does when a tree blows down but the forest goes on. In a forest, things change all the time. Wind blows a tree down. It stops being a tree. But on the ground, it goes through a series of transformations, becoming home for thousands of creatures in successions of generations. The tree blows down, a sunny spot opens up, and new kinds of things start growing. Mosaics of different kinds of plants and the animals who live with them are constantly appearing and disappearing, but the forest itself is still a forest. Why is it resilient? Because there are so many different kinds of creatures there, each making its living in its own way. It turns out that diversity is the key to the resilience of systems. Whether we are talking about people or nations or forests, the more diverse a system is and the more variations there are, the better that system will be able to deal with change and stay resilient. There are many ways to be. There are many directions in which to work. And like a forest with many creatures making their livings in many different ways, we need them all. We live on a planet that is changing fast. In just the last 50 years, Earth's population has doubled, consumption of water has tripled, the use of fossil fuel has quadrupled. Storms and wildfires are growing, mountain glaciers are melting, sea level is rising. The sixth mass extinction is well underway, with 50% of species alive today predicted to be gone by 2050. That's the reality. But there are signs that we may also be at the beginning of what will turn out to be an era of human transformation to something new and better than before. What might it be like? It seems likely that nearly every aspect of the way we live will be transformed to some degree, from where and how we grow our food, to how we transport ourselves and our goods, to how those goods are made, as we become both more connected globally and more self-reliant locally. Those are possibilities. The future is unknowable. What we do know is that, at the least, Earth's climate will be changing and its oceans will be rising for centuries to come. The era of a petroleum-powered, ever-expanding economy will come to an end, and a significant portion of species alive today will no longer be with us. We know that all of this, climate, oceans, people, all life, is entering a time of major transition, that it will eventually settle into a new state of equilibrium, and that when it does, Earth will not be the same as it was before. So we see lots of indicators that say things are changing fast, and it can feel discouraging. We know there's turbulence ahead. We could feel pessimistic. But there is another path, action, each of us in our own diverse way, in our own particular corner of the world. A Latin proverb says, "If there is no wind, row." The way to move forward through uncertainty is to do, to act from a position of hope based on a positive vision. At the beginning of the civil rights era, when Dr. Martin Luther King looked around, he saw evidence of racism everywhere. Its presence was indisputable. It was ugly, and it was deeply embedded. And yet, in the face of that grim reality, his speech was not, "I have a nightmare." His speech was a call to action. "I have a dream." So in this beautiful, wondrous world, find a place to stand. Choose what you love. Start where you are and do what you can. And Godspeed to us all.